The journal's pages were swollen, the ink bleeding but still legible in places. Her voice cracked as she read aloud, "Mother lied, father knew. If they find out what's buried here, the family's finished. She'll kill to keep it quiet." She looked up, heart pounding. "Nathan, he's talking about our mother."
"We need to leave. Whoever took him might be watching."
"What did you do, Mother?"
He drove her back to the hall in silence. The rain drummed against the roof like a metronome for dread. Isabella stared out the window, fingers clenched around the journal. Every so often, she'd blink hard, fighting the tears. Nathan wanted to reach for her, to promise her something he couldn't: safety, truth, control. Instead, he said softly, "Whatever this is, you're not alone anymore."
"I'm not sure that's a good thing."
"You've been out," she said evenly.
"Gabriel's gone," Isabella said. "We found his car in the cove."
Eleanor didn't flinch, didn't gasp. Only the slightest narrowing of her eyes betrayed anything human. "I told him this would happen," she said coldly. "Some things should never be unearthed."
"Mother, what things? What did you—"
Eleanor cut her off with a whisper sharp enough to wound. "Go to bed, Isabella. And burn that journal before you damn us all."
She didn't sleep. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered in the corridors. The slow drip of rain from the gutters, the distant hum of the sea. Carrington Hall felt hollow, a museum of ghosts. The journal lay open on her desk. Gabriel's writing sprawled across the pages, desperate and uneven. "Mother says blood is everything, but what if it isn't ours to claim?" Her stomach turned. Every line felt like a thread unraveling, and somewhere at the end of it waited a truth she wasn't ready to face. She turned to the final entry, smudged with seawater. "If I disappear, it means she found out. Tell Isa to look beneath the portrait." Her eyes widened. The portrait, the woman. She moved through the darkened hall, barefoot, her nightgown brushing the marble. The painting loomed at the end of the corridor like a sentinel. The woman's eyes seemed to follow her as she lifted it from the wall. Behind the frame, taped to the wooden panel, was a small envelope. Inside, a DNA report, brittle with age. Her own name was printed at the top, and beneath it, a single word, highlighted in yellow: non-match.
He hadn't heard from her since the night before. Nathan sat in the dim light of the seaside motel, reading through his own notes, trying to make sense of the web he'd stumbled into. Every lead circled back to the same names: the Carringtons, the Rose, and one that didn't belong there at all: Margaret Cole, his mother. The archives listed her as a restoration specialist hired by Carrington Hall 28 years ago. No record of her leaving. No record of her death, at least not in Ashbourne. He rubbed his eyes. He'd come here for the truth, but the closer he got, the more it felt like stepping into a story already written. One where everyone lied, and every lie hid a blood tie. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Isabella. "Come to the hall. Bring your recorder. You were right." He arrived just as dawn brushed the horizon.
The air between them felt fragile, half trust, half suspicion. Nathan looked at the envelope in her hands. "What is that?" "Proof that I don't belong here." He read the report in silence. Then, softly, "Isia, I'm not a Carrington," she said, almost to herself. "The test says I share no maternal DNA with Eleanor. None. I was adopted, hidden, and she's lied to me my whole life." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away.
"Who am I, Nathan?" He hesitated, his throat tightening around words he shouldn't speak. Because he knew something she didn't, something that burned in his chest like guilt. He reached into his pocket and set an old photograph on the table. It showed a young woman, smiling, paint-smeared, standing in front of a half-finished portrait. The same eyes, the same smile. Isabella's face. "My mother," he said quietly. "Margaret Cole."
Her world froze. The room seemed to tilt, air thinning between them.
She can't be?" Nathan took a step closer, every instinct screaming to stop but unable to. "Isa, I didn't know until I saw this. I came here to find out what happened to her, to find who took her from me." Her breath shuddered. "And you think that's me?" "No," he said quickly, "but I think you were part of it, or maybe the reason for it."
She stared at him, eyes wide, full of betrayal.
You lied to me. All this time, you pretended to be someone else. I had to, he said. Your family, Eleanor, she's tied to everything. My mother worked here. She vanished here. Then what am I to you, Nathan? She whispered. A lead, a means to an ending. He stepped closer, rain glinting in his hair, voice breaking. No, you're the only thing that's made me want the truth for something other than revenge.
She wanted to slap him. She wanted to run. She wanted to believe him. Instead, she did none of those things. Her voice was quiet, dangerous. Get out. Isia, please. He hesitated, eyes searching hers, 1,000 words unspoken between them. Then he turned, the echo of his footsteps swallowed by the marble. As soon as the door closed, she sank to the floor, clutching the DNA report like it could still rewrite itself. Her gaze drifted to the portrait again. The woman's eyes seemed softer now, almost sympathetic. Who are you? She whispered.
He didn't go far. He parked at the edge of the estate, the hall's lights flickering through the mist. His heart felt like a live wire. He'd hurt her, maybe beyond repair, but if what the DNA said was true, then Isabella wasn't his enemy. She was proof. He switched on his recorder. Day 4. Isabella Carrington, or Isabella Cole. Non-matched DNA to Eleanor Carrington. Possible abduction cover-up. Connection to my mother's disappearance confirmed. He shut it off, chest heavy.
Then, from the darkness, a figure moved toward his car. He reached for the door handle, but the figure stepped into the light first. Eleanor Carrington, her face calm, her smile razor-sharp. You've been busy, Mr. Cole, she said.
She followed the sound into the cellar, the oldest part of the house, where the air was damp and cold. The door that had been locked her entire life now stood ajar. Inside, under a hanging light bulb, were boxes marked with her father's handwriting, and one marked Rowan. She opened it. Inside, old photographs, hospital records, and a birth certificate. Isabel Rowan Cole. Her hands shook as she traced the ink. Rowan, not Carrington, not adopted, not stolen, hidden.
And beneath it, in her father's handwriting again, she's your mother's daughter, but they must never know. Her blood ran cold. The portrait woman, the one who looked like her, her real mother. Eleanor watched Nathan through the rain-streaked glass of his car window. You've done quite enough damage, she said softly. My daughter doesn't need your pity. Or your poison. She's not your daughter, Nathan said. Eleanor smiled faintly. No, she's yours.
His breath caught. What? Eleanor leaned closer, her perfume intoxicating, her words colder than the sea. Your mother begged me to keep her safe. The fire wasn't meant for her. But you can't bury a past like ours, Mr. Cole. It has roots. She turned to leave, her voice a whisper trailing into the storm. Tell Isabella the truth if you must. But remember, every truth in this family draws blood.
The flames had started small. A single candle toppled on the edge of her father's old desk. By the time the servants smelled smoke, the east wing was already breathing fire. But Isabel wasn't afraid. She stood at the threshold of her father's studio, the walls alive with heat, and realized the blaze wasn't the danger, it was the cleansing. The old world was burning. The lies were burning, and maybe for once, she wanted to watch it all fall apart. Hours earlier, she'd found the truth her mother never meant for her to see.
Isabella Rowan Cole, daughter of Margaret Cole, the woman Nathan had spent his life mourning. The woman who once loved her father. The truth felt like a wound and a revelation all at once. Everything in her life, every portrait, every memory, every whispered warning had been built to keep her from this. And still, she could hear her mother's voice echoing in her head. Some things should never be unearthed. The moment Eleanor said the words, "She's yours," something inside him cracked. Not belief, not denial, just the dizzying silence between the two. "She's my what?" he demanded, rain slashing between them. Eleanor didn't blink. "Your sister, Mr. Cole, by blood if not by name." He stepped back, shaking his head. "That's impossible." "Nothing in this family ever is," she said. "Now go. If you truly care for her, you'll stay far away." But he didn't leave, because he'd seen something in Eleanor's eyes that didn't fit the cold certainty of her voice. Fear. And fear meant she was lying about something, maybe everything.
By the time Nathan reached the hall, smoke was already pouring through the windows. He ran through the garden, boots slamming through puddles, the night alive with orange light. Inside, the heat clawed at his lungs. "Isabella," he shouted. She appeared through the haze at the top of the staircase, clutching a bundle of charred papers. The journal, the DNA reports, fragments of truth, half consumed by fire. Her face glowed in the flames, tear-streaked, furious, alive. "Nathan," she gasped. "It's her. She did it. She said it."
He grabbed her hand as part of the ceiling cracked above them. "Where's Eleanor?" "Gone," Isabella said. "She took something, another file, I think, and locked me in here." The fire roared louder, the portrait on the wall catching light. The painted woman's eyes vanished into flame. "Come on," Nathan shouted, pulling her down the stairs.
They burst into the rain just as the roof gave way.
The hall behind them was a skeleton of gold and black, centuries of secrets turning to smoke. She fell to her knees, shaking. All she could see was the portrait melting through the windows, her mother's face dissolving into fire. It felt like losing her twice. Nathan dropped beside her, breathing hard, drenched, his hand trembling as it touched her cheek. "I thought you were gone," he said, voice breaking.
"I almost was," she whispered, "and maybe part of me deserved to be."
"Don't say that." He brushed a lock of wet hair from her face. "You didn't build this. You were born in its ashes." He should have pulled away, but he didn't. He couldn't. Her eyes, fierce and shattered, were the only steady thing left in the chaos. And before either of them could think, he kissed her. It was desperate, raw, salt, smoke, and rain. The kind of kiss that came when two people had nothing left to lose. When he finally drew back, her breath trembled against his.
"This changes nothing," she whispered. He smiled, a broken thing. "Everything's already changed. At dawn, the fire was out. The hall was nothing but scorched walls and ghosts. The police came and went. So did the reporters. Eleanor Carrington was missing. All they found was a car abandoned near the cliffs, the Carrington crest glinting through ash and sea spray, the same car that once belonged to Margaret Cole."
Nathan stood beside her as they watched the wreck hauled from the tide.
He said nothing, neither did she. Then one of the officers called out, "Sir, you'll want to see this." From the wreck's trunk, wrapped in waterproof cloth, they pulled a small metal box. Inside, beneath a layer of soot and salt, was a stack of sealed documents labeled Rowan Estate Trust, Confidential, and a photograph. Eleanor and Margaret, young, smiling, arms around each other, sisters.
He looked at Isabella, the truth settling between them like the last embers of a dying fire. "Your mother and mine," he said quietly. They were sisters. Isabella closed her eyes, tears spilling despite her strength. "So that means we're not related," he finished, voice barely above the sea's whisper. "Not by blood, but our families, they're bound by the same lie." She exhaled, the weight of it almost too much to bear. "Then what happens now?" Nathan looked toward the smoking ruins of the hall. "Now," he said, "we find out who the fire was meant to kill."
That night, she dreamed of the portrait again, but this time, the woman in the frame was burning, and behind her stood Eleanor, whispering, "Blood may lie, but it never forgets." Isabella woke to the sound of footsteps in the hall, soft, deliberate. She rose, heart pounding, and opened her bedroom door. At the end of the corridor stood Eleanor Carrington, alive, untouched, eyes gleaming like steel. "Hello, darling," she said. "We need to talk about your inheritance."
Episode 6. Ashes of the Past. Isabella Eleanor stood framed by the morning light, a silhouette of calm in the wreckage of the night before.
The fire had taken the East Wing, the press had taken the story, and Isabella had taken the fall. But her mother, she was untouched, composed, and somehow radiant. "I thought you were dead," Isabella whispered, her throat raw from smoke and sleeplessness. "I was," Eleanor replied softly, "until I realized you were burning everything I fought to protect." Her tone wasn't anger, it was betrayal, a blade wrapped in silk.
Eleanor stepped closer, eyes sharp. The fire wasn't mine, Isa. It was yours.
He lingered outside the door, every muscle tense. He could hear their voices, Eleanor's poised and unshaken, Isabella's trembling beneath the weight of revelation. He had spent years chasing ghosts. Now those ghosts had names, faces, and power. In his hand, he still held the photograph from the wreck, Eleanor and Margaret, young, smiling, arms around each other. Sisters,